it started was I had a really bad day at work. And I had a really difficult client call. I was on the call with a few other people, luckily, so I wasn't alone. But basically, the client kind of had a tanty, chucked all their toys out of the pram and said, "You're supposed to be creative." And I haven't had people talk to me like that for such a long time. And that really reminded me of working in, retail and service and restaurants and things like that. So I got really, really frustrated, and I left work. I was so angry after work. I was like, I'm going for a walk. And I went for a walk, and I was going around in my head, and I wrote an angry rap in my mind, which I was too embarrassed to share with Chris. So I kept it a secret in my little Boo lyrics book.
So here's the actual lyrics book.
I wrote it down in the lyrics book. You can see lyrics for the idiots on the left, but yeah, I wrote it down, kept it secret, and just left it there. But I often have ideas like this in the book, and they don't all get used. But then came to the studio one day.
Well, yeah, I'd been working on something with the fuse box, which is behind me.
Wonderful
Bleeping away. I should
box.
turn that up actually later. And the SH1, which is over there, up there. Was actually making trying to make an electro track. I've been listening to a lot of electro compilations from the early 80s, and that led on to me thinking about Kraftwerk and numbers, and that led to a chromatic bass line. So it was that's where that whole idea came from. It's just following that train of thought, no connection to anything. Then Bridget came into the room and said, well, she started shouting.
Oh my God, this is perfect. I've written an angry rap that's going to go great with this.
So then we started working on the records together, the words together, and here you can see some of our working out.
Yeah, so when we start kind of honing the words, we print them out and then we iterate. We usually iterate, both of us will scribble stuff on it and change things until we're both really happy with it.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're just perfect right away, but usually we change a few little things as they go. And then...
Okay, so the next thing that happened, and this all happened very, very quickly, was this. So we went, I was mixing the song and putting it together, and basically had a hallucination. I hallucinated the entire video and called Bridget in. She got her art pad out, and I spoke as the song played, and she effectively wrote down the entire video right there and then. And here's the actual drawings of what we did, and I'm sure if you've seen the video, you'll see that that's basically what happened, right?
Yeah.
That's sort of what came out.
I mean, storyboards don't have to be polished pieces of art. They're functional storytelling things. Just if you can draw stick figures, you can storyboard.
Totally. And then we went on to do the actual recording. So I'm going to play you a little piece of film, which is a sort of diary of filming the video. So here it is.
We're going to set up the workroom to do some filming for the video for the song we've just done. Okay, green screen set up and ready to record tomorrow. We've finished the harmonies today on the song. Chris is working on the mix now, but it's pretty much done. Just ticking off things in my head that we need to do before we film tomorrow. I think we're going to use natural light. Those lights are just to light the green screen, and we'll just use the natural bright daylight that we get in this room to film by. Okay, we've worked out makeup, got costumes, batteries are charging. Yeah, I think we're ready to film tomorrow. Yay! Service with a smart book. Firstly, we create all the drawings of the backgrounds. We went with a simple sort of retro rough line drawing look and feel with some tones just to draw focus to certain areas and add a bit of mood. There's some guidelines in here for where the neon is going to go, but that's a separate layer because we're going to do that in After Effects. So yeah, there's the outside of the restaurant, inside of the restaurant, kitchen, conveyor belt. The conveyor belt actually has a few lines that go on it. These will basically animate, and we only need 4 frames because it's going to loop, and that'll just be enough to make it look like the conveyor belt's moving. And then we've got the table, 2 versions, so it's not the same place setting. And then the dishes, which we basically took the dish from the footage and just mocked up different things on there and saved these out as separate images that we could add in After Effects, tracked to that X on the plate. So this is After Effects. This is where we do all of our effects, combining the footage and the graphics and anything we want to create our music video. It's basically like Photoshop, but with a timeline here. So you can see layers of things on top of each other. We've got the caviar on the plate, on the table. And if we look at the table, there's a bit of an effect going on there. So it's kind of twitching. I'll zoom in. It's wiggling. In animation, we call this effect boiling, and traditionally, it happens when you have multiple drawings of the same thing and it looks really, really lively over time. However, as we had such limited time, I didn't want to be drawing everything twice, so I kind of faked it in After Effects with this thing called turbulent displace. And basically with these values here, you can just adjust them and it will warp the image in an animated way. Then the next element in here is we've got the plate. The plate itself, we've chroma keyed that out, so we've got rid of the green background and brightened it up. And the reason we've got the X on there is so that we can track an image to the plate. There's a function within After Effects where you can create a null, which is basically like a little handle, a little sticky that we can make stick to that. And you can see it's moving with the plate there. So now we have that kind of sticky guide. We can stick objects to it, like the caviar or my head or whatever we want to put on it. The first thing we need to do to all of our green screen footage is create some black and white mats for it. This just saves the computer having to calculate the chroma key while it's running, which is a really memory intensive thing to do. So we need to turn that basically into this. We've brightened up our footage and made those greens really pop so they're nice and even as possible, really bright green. Back in the main composition, we select our layer and just draw a nice mask over it. This is called a garbage mat to get rid of all the extraneous bits and pieces around the edges. And then it's as simple as applying the effect that comes with After Effects. Key light, double click, choose your green, and bam, it kind of drops out. It's a little hard to see on the black background, so let's do a combined matte view. And this should show us a nice clear black and white view so we can see our values. And it's basically just a matter of kind of bringing up your clip black and clip white values. Maybe you want to soften it a little bit. And then you've got your key, roughly. All of those settings can be tweaked a lot to get a really good key, and it's quite an art form in itself to pull a good key. And you can see we've got a problem in that the notepad is not being keyed out. This is because you can see from the lighting here, it's a little bit yellow. It's on the yellow side. Anyway, we didn't think about a yellow notepad interfering with that. We just grabbed the nearest notepad we had that looked like what we used to use when we were both working in cafes. Nothing we can do about it in the key, so we basically had to patch it up and hand keyframe a little white patch over it wherever it appears. Also, you can see I've added another one for the pen because the biro, of course, is transparent and it just totally disappears in the key. Put that on, final result. You can see the pen is just not in there at all. So yeah, I just had to hand keyframe that to keep it in there. It's these little details that really make a video great. They're important. Next, I worked on the more complex effect shots because these would be more processor intensive and I could pre-render them out for the edit. The bots themselves are really simple. It's just a 3D scene with 2D elements. So if I move the camera around, you can see that they're just totally flat elements set up in 3D space. And the bots themselves, they're just shape layers parented to each other, which is all we needed. They need to look like dumb robots, so that's kind of how they turned out. So yeah, we basically just arranged them in 3D space and put some lasers behind them, because lasers, yes, always. And then for the conveyor belt shot, we've got a map for the conveyor belt, texture on the background, bit of color to give it some contrast. And then the heads themselves, just hand animated them moving along there. And inside we've got the footage with a garbage mat around it. Key light is applied. And then here we've got some levels brightening it up. We've got the weird neck. It rotates when she falls off the conveyor belt. That's how that works. Lastly, we apply some blanket effects to the whole piece to unify it a bit visually and glue everything together. First, we have some slight chromatic aberration. So we've got a blue channel of the footage, a red channel and a green channel. They're all set to add on top of each other. And some of them just have a little optics compensation. I'll just really exaggerate that so you can see what it's doing, sort of making a warped television-ish shape. But basically it just adds a little lens-like color bleed at the edges of each channel. And then we've just got some noise on top. Then lastly, in the titles, we added the neon effects. So they're at the start there and at the end with the logo. This is done using a really cool free plugin called Saber, which you can get on Video Copilot. Just download it for Windows or Mac, and it's got a lovely tutorial. It's really straightforward to use. We basically just brought in our masks from the vector of our logo, and then you can customize the core and choose layer masks. And there are loads of brilliant effects you can put on it. Lots of fun to be had there. We went with kind of a basic neon in the end, but what a brilliant free plugin. These are all animated as well. Yeah, so that's how we did the effects on the end. The hardest thing about this project was definitely dealing with the computer lag. For the editing part of the process, we needed to see us in situ with the backgrounds and the camera moves so that we could frame each shot. This meant we had to do it in After Effects, but After Effects is not really editing software. It's not optimized for real-time playback. This made editing really difficult because we had to wait every time we hit play. We tried to speed it up by using smaller proxy footage, and we used mats instead of key light. We turned off all the effects, but it still really struggled. There was just too much going on. If we'd had a bit more time, I probably would have just done an edit of the green screen footage with no backgrounds, just to get the edit and the timing right. Nail that timing. Then we could have chopped out the shots and added all the backgrounds and effects in After Effects. That's how proper production flows normally work. Do the edit and then do the post. But we made this in about 3 days. But hey, live and learn.
Okay, so that's how you did it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was only possible because I'd learned so much from making Lady Megawatt, which obviously pushed the boat out technically in terms of what we could do.
Yeah, that was an impressive bit of work. That took months. This one, from the time of Bridget walking into the studio and shouting to it actually being finished was...
Well, the edit took 3 days. Yeah. The filming happened a day. I went through my diary. We recorded the vocals on the Saturday, recorded the harmonies on the Sunday. I had a week off work, which always helps. And then Chris had ideas for the video on Sunday night. We wrote it down, set up the studio for filming that night, filmed on Monday, and started on the edit. And then we had the edit done in 3 days.
That's amazing. So it doesn't normally happen that fast. But I mean, if you don't count the little bits of work I'd done before and the fact that you wrote that song in a fit of rage about a year before. It was very quick. So, yeah, one of the questions people asked us was, how do you write your songs? And that one is very simply anger. Because we both had terrible jobs, haven't we?
Yeah, we've done it all. I mean, my first job was working as a waitress in a Thai restaurant.
In a cocktail bar,
and then in cafes. And when I first came to London, of course, I was a bar lady, as all Australians must be when they come to London.
Yeah. I used to believe that people should do a kind of national service where working in restaurants to learn how to behave, because the amount of abuse you can receive from, frankly, entitled and overly wealthy people is outrageous.
I think when people are splashing out loads of money, and you definitely get this in bars as well, when they buy an item off you, they think they're buying you.
Mm.
Weirdly, they think do you come with the car?
Oh dear, no. Right, okay.